PlayStation 4 rumors, Google Voice gets smarter, and who needs an iPad Pro? Tech News Tonight is next.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Tonight, episode 468 for Monday, November 16th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Epson's new EcoTank printers. With Epson's line of SuperTank all-in-one printers, you can print thousands of documents without running out of ink. EcoTank is loaded and ready to print when you are. Visit epson.com/ecotank to find out more. Welcome, I'm Megan Morrone. Let's get to today's tech news. Over the weekend, you might have heard many news outlets claiming that the attacks in Paris that killed 120 people and injured hundreds more were planned on a PlayStation 4. The Verge and others said today that this was inaccurate and due to a reporting error. The original story said that the attackers used Sony's PlayStation Network to communicate via text and voice with others on the platform to plan this attack. Now, no one is doubting how technically savvy ISIS is, especially compared to other terrorist groups. However, there is no evidence that ISIS used Super Mario Maker coins to communicate. A Belgian politician was quoted as saying that terrorists love the PlayStation 4, particularly how difficult it is for them to decrypt, but one has not been directly linked to these particular terrorist attacks. Several mobile carriers offered free phone calls to France over the weekend. Skype says they will still be offering free calls to family and friends for the next few days. Google Voice Search just got smarter since it came on the scene in 2008. The tool has been learning how to answer new questions and to understand words in context. Ask the ingredients of a screwdriver, for example, and Google Voice Search will know you mean the drink and not the tool. According to the Google blog, Voice Search now understands semantics, meaning, and even the intent behind your question. You can use superlatives to find specific answers in relation to other items. You can ask questions with specific answers that relate to particular points in time, and you can even ask much more complex questions. Today, Microsoft announced a partnership with Code.org to harness kids' addiction to Minecraft to turn them all into computer programmers. A free tutorial is online now that will walk through 14 levels of challenges to help kids as young as 6 use basic computer science principles and Minecraft to learn the basics of coding. The Code.org Microsoft partnership is in conjunction with Code.org's annual Hour of Code that's meant to encourage kids to spend 1 hour coding. The Hour of Code takes place during the week of December 7th through the 14th. Streaming music service Rdio is going bankrupt. The Verge reports that Pandora is buying several technology assets and intellectual property from Rdio to the tune of $75 million. In a press release today, Pandora CEO Brian McAndrews said that this signifies a new chapter for Pandora, although he did not specify whether Pandora would turn into more of an on-demand streaming service like Apple Music or Spotify. The field of music streaming got even more crowded last week with the new service YouTube Music that could be a game changer. Rdio employees will be given the chance to work at Pandora. Coming up, I will talk to ZDNet's Kevin Tofel about what he can and cannot do with his new iPad Pro. But first, this episode is brought to you by Epson. Epson's revolutionary EcoTank line of printers for home and office introduce a new age in printing. The new EcoTank ET4550 wireless all-in-one printer doesn't use ink cartridges. Instead, it features an innovative refillable ink tank. It comes with enough ink to print up to 8,500 pages. That's equivalent to about 50 ink cartridge sets. You're loaded and ready to print for up to 2 years. Powered by Epson's leading-edge precision core technology, it delivers high speed, vivid colors, and laser-quality black text, plus auto two-sided printing, a 30-page auto document feeder, and easy wireless printing from tablets and smartphones. All EcoTank printers deliver an unbeatable combination of convenience and value with ultra-low-cost replacement ink bottles. Now you have the freedom to print without running out of ink. Visit epson.com/ecotank today to transform the way your home, office, or work group prints. For the best combination of ease and value, turn to the new Epson EcoTank printers. That's epson.com/ecotank, and we thank Epson for their support. Our guest tonight and I have been using the new iPad Pro for almost a week, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to compare notes. Kevin Tofel has over 25 years of experience in technology, first in IT, then for the last 12 years as a writer for PC World, the New York Times, and more. Currently, he's a contributing writer at ZDNet and a contributing co-host to our morning show, Tech News Today. Welcome, Kevin Tofel.
Glad to be here. I don't know about you, but I almost didn't make it. I almost pulled my back out carrying this thing.
I
It's
don't.
big.
It is big, but I don't. I mean, I don't. For anyone who's used to carrying a laptop around, it doesn't seem heavy. I've been saying like it can fit in my purse, but I apparently have a giant purse, which I do because it's 12.9 feet. So, yeah, I don't think it's too heavy. I do think it's portable. I took it to soccer games this weekend and used it there. So, what are your first thoughts?
Well, it's surprising because you look at it, it is big, but it's only big when you look at it compared to older iPads, which are all smaller. I have a Surface Pro 4. I'm actually using that right now to do this show. And really, it's about the same size. It's slightly taller when you have it in landscape mode, but it's actually lighter than the Surface Pro. It's actually thinner. So all these people saying it's just so big. I mean, I was joking about it. It's not that bad. I took it to my doctor's office today just because he likes to see all the new tech toys and whatnot when I go on my checkups and whatnot. And he saw it. And he's like, "Oh, it's huge." And I said, "Yeah, well, hold it." He goes, "Huh? It feels like just a big clipboard. It's not that heavy." So I think it's kind of surprising in terms of the size and the weight. I don't know if you've handed yours off to anybody else to see what they think, but
I admitted to Leo today that I had handed it off to my 10-year-old twins, which he got a look of fear in his eyes, but because it's not cheap at all. But yeah, I think that it's interesting that you mentioned the doctor's office because they're always so behind on technology. I loved your tweet today that you posted about how your doctors had upgraded their computers.
The Chromebooks.
Yeah, that is interesting. And that's why I also am interested in talking to you because you are not like just an iOS only person at all. You test it all. So you say how it compares to a Surface. How does it compare to like your favorite Chromebook?
I mean, a Chromebook is obviously more limited in that you're going to be living in the browser, which for most of what I do, that works perfectly fine for me. You don't have that app experience on a Chromebook. And, Chromebooks are far cheaper as well. So, I mean, you can get 4 Chromebooks, for the price of an iPad Pro. So it's definitely something that what I always say is you want to buy the best tool for your tasks. And we all have different tasks. That way I don't tell people what to buy. I tell them what I do and how certain tools work for me and figure, hey, if they have similar requirements in computing than I do, well, then they'll probably buy what I use, or at least consider it. So, they're very different animals. And I think a lot of people, rightly so, are comparing this to a Surface Pro and to a laptop or desktop. This really does seem like a new experience to me. I mean, yes, it is just a big iPad on the Surface, but something about it with the multi-view, split view, using multiple apps at the same time, switching on the slide out view between apps very quickly, and I'm finding a lot of keyboard shortcuts that help me navigate tremendously faster over the past 5 days. I've been using this as my full-time device. So, I wouldn't write it off as a laptop replacement for certain people. I don't think most people are going to replace their laptops with this. I think this is also not a companion device, which many of the iPads in the past have been. You're going to spend $7, $8, $900 or more, $1,000 for this. That's not a companion device price. So I would already say, just in the first few days of using it, the only people who should really be considering it would be people who are planning to use it a majority of their time because of that cost.
Right. So you mentioned the keyboard shortcuts. What keyboard have you been using with it?
Unfortunately, I ordered the smart keyboard. That didn't come for really anybody. So I dug out my old wireless Apple keyboard. And ironically, I used the Surface Pro to prop the whole thing up because I don't have a stand or anything. So I'm using the Apple wireless keyboard. It works perfectly fine. I had a Zag keyboard with my iPad Air in the past. That they are fine. I know Zag has 2 models coming out next month for the Pro. I really thought when I first started using this as a full-time device on Thursday afternoon that reaching up and touching the screen because there's no mouse or trackpad, this thing would be the bane of my existence. I really thought so. But once I got a keyboard paired with it and started learning all the shortcuts, which are pretty much the Mac OS X shortcuts, I can now select text in bulk or just letter by letter, cut and paste and everything without touching the screen. So I'm going to have a post later this week sharing some of those shortcuts because they're tremendously helpful. So I'm getting around much faster on this, and it's been my full-time device since Thursday.
Yeah, I've been using the Logitech Create keyboard, the one that Apple recommends, and it is great. I
Hmm.
mean, it has a home button, it has a spotlight button, it uses all the same shortcuts too. I don't mind. It's funny that we're complaining so much about reaching that very short distance to touch the screen, which I found myself when I did have to go back to the MacBook. That's what I was doing, touching the MacBook
Hmm.
screen and having that. Oh, wait a minute, like that. There's, it's not touchscreen. So it is interesting because I get it that we want to, if we spend all day working on these computers, we want to make everything as simple as possible. But I do think that the future is going to be a combination of those two.
Mm. I kind of think so as well. Although Tim Cook has recently come out yesterday or today and said we're not interested in doing like a hybrid device of Mac OS 10 and iOS. I'm not so sure. The more they deny something usually means the more they're going to do it and they don't want anybody to know. And a couple weeks ago, they actually were granted a patent for a laptop with removable display. And I'm sitting here going, so you put, this is your display for your laptop, and inside is the ARM chips and the battery and everything else. It's a typical iPad. You dock it with a smart connector into a keyboard base that actually has Intel guts and runs OS 10. So you could actually do both. And when you want one, you just, use the keyboard for OS 10. You want to use your iPad touchscreen, you pull it off. So I tend to think that they're going to do that. And I agree with you that this is where things are heading. I'm a big believer in mobile platforms taking over for desktop ones. So that's partly why I wanted to try this out.
So I know you said that you've been doing like some Java programming and you can't do that on your iPad Pro and some of the podcast stuff that you've been doing. Is there anything else that you haven't been able to do?
Yeah, the podcasting is a bit tricky because of the way we do it. I could theoretically do a podcast on here because Skype is available, but I can't use this microphone, which I really like. It makes me sound smart. And I can't use it with the Lightning port adapter. It works, you can plug it in, but Skype doesn't recognize it is what it comes down to. GarageBand actually does. So that's an option or a potential pitfall for people. Yeah, the coding, I have to go out to like codeenvy.com and code in the cloud or remote into a $200 Windows laptop I have here where I have the Eclipse IDE installed for Java programming and whatnot. Everything else, though, I really have had no problems getting what I do done. And I realize my computing needs are meager and, I'm not a CAD designer. I don't use Photoshop. It depends, again, on what you need to do.
Right. I mean, I do think that that Photoshop is great. I mean, not the full Photoshop, but yeah, photo editing, you can do a lot. And I think that will change. But I mean, where I'm coming from, I think that if I didn't already have a MacBook, then I probably would buy this because it does both. I can work on it. My needs are similar to yours. I think we do a lot of writing. A lot of my writing, is in Google Docs and, Google Sheets, a lot of stuff that's in the cloud. I don't have a lot of, files. So I probably would buy this if I didn't, if I was just a regular consumer for just a freelance writer. So now you recently wrote an article about how iPad sales might be widely declining because iPhones are getting so big. So there is like that idea that people just want one device. So you wrote that you think a smaller iPhone might be the answer to selling more iPads. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we recently heard from a couple of analysts, two in the past month, saying we've heard from our supply chain people that Apple is considering another 4-inch iPhone, similar to what they did with the iPhone 5C. This would be like an iPhone 6C. And, there really still is a market for 4-inch screens on phones. It's great if you like your 4.7-inch iPhone 6 or, the 5.5-inch iPhone 6 Plus, but not everybody does. And Apple getting away from a 4-inch phone really gets them away from a potential market or an audience. And apparently, and I didn't know this until earlier today, that they sold 24 million of those iPhone 5Cs. I thought it was a failure, but 24 million is pretty darn good, especially when you compare it to non-iPhones. So clearly people still want small phones. And if they do that, they're less likely, I think, to rely on the phone for quote unquote tablet usage. I mean, my son has a 6S Plus and he's like, I don't need an iPad. This is plenty big enough. So there you go. I mean, there's somebody right there not interested in an iPad mini or an iPad Air. But people who have a 4-inch phone, well, it's a much bigger jump to, say, a 7-inch tablet, or 7.9 actually, or a 9.7 or this behemoth here. So I do think people might be more inclined to get an iPad if they prefer a smaller phone.
Right. My husband has a 5C. I say that the C stands for caveman. That's what I always say. But yes, people do have it. And I can't read anything on there. You just like,
Right.
what? But I think once you get used to that, and, it's the same thing. Like, I don't want a bigger phone. It doesn't fit in my pocket. I think a lot of people still have that. So, yeah, we will see if there's a new iPhone 6C or whatever they will call it, a new smaller iPhone. We will see. Kevin Tofel, thank you so much for joining us. Kevin is a contributing writer at ZDNet. You can find him here on this network every Wednesday morning with Mike Elgin on Tech News Today and on Twitter at Kevin C. Tofel. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Megan.
Take care. Now, if you felt personally offended when Twitter recently changed the iconic star favorite icon to the heart-like icon, relief might be on the way. TechCrunch noticed that Twitter seems to be testing several alternative emoji reactions to tweets, including grimaces, crying, really crying, anger, and even the poop emoji. TechCrunch and The Verge both reached out to Twitter to confirm or deny that they're testing these new emoji reactions to complement the heart. The response from Twitter was the speak no evil monkey emoji. That's the one if you're watching the video version. Classic Twitter. That's it for this edition of Tech News Tonight. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, TuneIn, and 3 new apps on the Apple TV. You can also subscribe to this show at twit.tv/TN2. Write to us at TN2 @twit.tv and watch live every weekday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And don't miss our morning news program, Tech News Today, every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I am Megan Morrone. Thanks for watching.
Bandwidth for Tech News Tonight is brought to you by CashFly.com.